How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Chair Talk. Guys, great discussion today. We're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger, from criminology student to convicted killer. Were there signs? Did we miss anything? Seems to be a popular topic right now on the YouTube algorithm. So I'm going to kind of give my 2 cents along with my guest, Russ Hamilton. Let me bring him in. Russ, what's going on, brother?
How's it going tonight, Anthony?
It's good to see you again. Russ, do you mind introducing yourself, please?
Sure. My name's Russ Hamilton. I am a former sergeant with California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Started my career all the way back in 1989 at San Quentin State Prison. I'm also a former juvenile correctional officer. I currently work for a company that does, a private company that does reentry and rehabilitation work at a local county jail where I am a case manager, and for a local county probation department. I am also the founder of Keepers of Chaos, which is on, with a K, that is, on Facebook. And basically, we try and just, make this job a little bit easier. It's a fellowship for people that want to learn about what corrections is. It's for people who want to, see content and, great history and things like that. It's also really designed to just, really kind of stoke mentorship and that kind of thing. And then last but not least, I am also a new author of a book called Killing Complacency, Tactical Awareness for Correctional Professionals. And yes, there it is. As you can see, it's got quite the design there, which I did all myself.
And guys, if you're interested, I got 2 books as well that deal right with the criminal mind. I'd love you guys to maybe get a chance to check it out. Inmate Manipulation Decoded. Yes, it's written from someone who works in a prison, myself, but it does apply to the real world. And we also have Breaking Boundaries. And this really deals with the slow building of relationships that turn out to be extremely manipulative. And that also plays out to the real world. All right, so we're going to get into Bryan Kohberger. So I broke this show into 4 parts. We're going to discuss the crime and shock value. Then we're going to do the guilty plea and sentencing. Then we're going to discuss briefly his background in psychology, and then the bigger picture and lessons. So I got 4 questions that me and Russ are going to discuss. But let's go over real quick what he did. So I just want to show you 2 pictures here. There's Bryan Kohberger, shirt, tie. Looks like could be a college professor here. Looks like he could be someone that could work in the criminal justice system. But this is how he looks now. In orange, basically an inmate right now at Idaho Maximum Security Institution. So in November 2022, 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mojen, Zaina Kernoodle, and Ethan Chaplin were brutally stabbed to death inside their off-campus house in Moscow, Idaho. The attack happened late at night, with most victims found in their bedrooms. 2 surviving roommates slept through parts of the ordeal, one reportedly seeing a masked figure leaving the scene. The killing stunned the small college town, leading to a 6-week nationwide investigation that ended with Kohberger's arrest at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. Now, what made this case stand out, outside of the 4 college students, was the contrast, basically, of a man studying criminology and criminal justice accused of committing one of the most shocking crimes of the decade. Now, Russ, as someone who studies crime deeply, does Kohberger's background make the murders feel more chilling, almost like theory turning into practice?
So, one of the things that you see with regards to serial killers, and yes, before anyone says, oh, he's not technically a serial killer, A, we don't know that. And B, I think that there's a good reason to suspect that that's the trajectory that he was on. I will say this, most serial killers at that level, they have some type of counter forensics that they involve themselves in. Some of these counter forensics work, some of them, actually work to their detriment. But no matter what, they're not actually out there just saying, hey, look, I killed someone, because that would be an indicator of them not knowing that it's wrong to kill. Obviously, he took measures to try and keep from being caught. but I think that maybe his long run goal was to develop really sophisticated countermeasures in a way that would have leveraged him to be able to keep on killing for a long time. I think he greatly overestimated, his prowess with regards to that, because he was actually caught relatively quickly. So I think that that is a chilling thing, to think that he was going to insert himself into potential investigations in the future, and maybe be able to, do more, countermeasures against forensics to keep going. But I think ultimately, he was a victim of his own press, if you were. I think that, he had a little bit of the Dunning-Kruger in him, and he greatly overestimated his abilities.
Yeah, and we also know that he's narcissistic. I think that for someone like him, he studied the other side of things, not just what the professors were teaching him, but it looked like no different than you would find in the shooting out of Minneapolis. There's a fascination with people that commit certain crimes. So in Minneapolis' case, was an active shooter. In his case, it was serial killers. He had a fascination with Ted Bundy, for example, and you could see the books in his house because they've been showing pictures of his apartment. So with that said, I think he was basically also taking the criminology courses to see the other side. I really do. I think it was his balance, because maybe, he read a lot about the serial killers that maybe he wanted to be like, but then maybe he wanted to get an understanding of how they're seen from the other side. And I think that is a bit scary, because his fascination goes way beyond theory. What's funny is they always tell us, me and Russ also teach us in our shows, is that when you work with the criminal mind, you have to be, we utilize tactical empathy. So you protect yourself while you're going into their head. You just don't want to go too far, because you don't want to change yourself. You don't want to change your morals. I remember watching The Shield, and in one of the seasons, this detective gets challenged by what would be, he's the starting of a serial killer. And what happens is the serial killer starts pushing on the detective. Like, you don't understand how it is to be like, me, and he wants to get into this person's head. So the detective winds up going home, starts petting a cat, and then winds up killing the cat. Because again, he went too far. I think in this case here, for Kohberger, I think Kohberger already had the mindset. I think he is already, or was, a sick individual. And I think what attracted him to criminology was just more to perfect the game that he was already trying to develop. I don't. Would you agree with that, Russ, at all? I think it wasn't.
I think it's certainly possible. I don't think that we can say anything with any great deal of certainty. But I do think that he had the idea of messing with the forensic countermeasures in his head. I certainly do believe that's a possibility.
Yeah, because I know, like, in some cases, like, I don't want people to think, I don't think it was the study of criminology that brought this monster out. I think he went into this to perfect the game. That's all I'm saying. That's what I mean. I think
it was
he
the
was
effect.
attracted.
The effect, not the cause.
Yeah, exactly. What's funny? We kind of did a show recently where it's like they say, "Oh, bad video games could have an effect on people." Yeah, but what they don't ask is what attracts people to those video games. That's the bigger question. So,
yeah,
I think the question we want to put out here is what basically attracted Kohberger to this type of study, and I truly believe it's because he wanted to perfect his game. Plan the perfect kill. And you're right, having that other perspective could, obviously help him get away with it. But guess what? He didn't. He got caught. And we're thinking it could be his first attempt. So, thank God he was really, really sloppy. But with that said, I thought that was an interesting question. Now we have the guilty plea and sentencing. So this is the next part. So in 2025, Kohberger pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. He received 4 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 10 years. During sentences, families gave emotional victim impact statements describing birthdays missed, futures stolen, and lives forever changed. Observers noted Kohberger's calm, detached demeanor throughout court. He offered little visible reaction, which some saw as cold indifference, while others suggested it could be his way of clinging to control. And guys, I did a show, please check it out, on when they were doing the victim impact statements, and I broke it down. Those victim impact statements were very well crafted. They attacked his ego. That was what was supposed to happen. This was a gentleman that doesn't feel remorse, doesn't feel guilt, doesn't even know how to process that, but he definitely can be humbled really quick because of his high level of narcissism or his grandiose ideas of himself. Prosecutors emphasized the premeditation, pointing to cell phone records, surveillance, and DNA on a knife sheath found on the scene. Russ, do you think Kohberger's calm courtroom presence reveals true coldness, or could it be a strategy, a way to maintain control when everything else has been stripped away?
I actually don't think it's any of those things, because from what I've seen and just what I've heard, I just think that overall Bryan Kohberger has a basic flat affect about the way he carries himself and presents himself, almost like he's on maybe a spectrum of some type somewhere. And so I don't think he's cold and calculating. There may be an element of him that's that. I don't think he's stoic, just like, hey, whatever comes, I'm going to be good with. We've already seen what a little baby he is with regards to a couple of people calling him names and so forth. So there's not really that in the courtroom. There's not much there to challenge him, except for, like you said, these witness statements. So if I were going to make a guess, I would say that he just has about him most of the time part of his personality facet, if you will, just a flat affect where he just doesn't react to a lot of things, and that's just the way he is inherently.
All right, so I'm going to go another route with that, but yes, I definitely do see what you're saying 100%. I want to add another perspective, though, because I thought there were certain statements that were said to him during the victim impact statements that did resonate a little bit. It's not like he made this, grand gesture or try to challenge what was being said, but you could see that when they started attacking his ego, that it did get to him. As I said, I think the Gonsalves family, I think their impact statements were the most powerful because they really attacked his image, and I think that was key. I think attacking his image basically made him be aware that, you know what, you weren't perfect. You're not this person who has defeated the system. And then they also attacked his I don't know if you want to say masculinity, but they said, if they were up, they would have kicked your ass. So you plan to come after them when they were the most vulnerable. So, but I said, if they would have tried the remorse route or the guilt route, we already know, me and Russ dealt with these type of individuals before, that doesn't do nothing. They don't know how to process that. They don't feel that the same way we feel it. So again, with the young lady who gave forgiveness, people need to be aware that the forgiveness was for her so she could move forward. She wasn't expecting a response from him. There is no connection there. As I said, I've seen people that may have done, I've dealt with people, that may have done murder that could have been conditional or situational, where they committed a bad act but didn't make them a bad person. And those are the people that may feel remorse or guilt. Maybe in the moment it got the best of them, and then later on they do have regret. Or maybe they were drunk or high, and later on when they start to sober up, they start to see the world a little bit differently. And again, these are people that you may be able to get to. But someone like this, there is no getting to them. They don't know how to process how we process things. So, and I do think one other thing, though, when he took the picture after the killing, me and Russ had discussed this before. We think this could have been the start of a signature. Me and Russ did a video on this. I think Russ was with me. Right? We definitely did a video. You were with me, right? We definitely did a video on this, discussing what we thought was what happened when he took the picture. Why did he take the picture? I mean, maybe it was the starting of of a signature, or maybe he had other pictures of him very similar. So, I mean, maybe that was him trying to perfect the game, or maybe those could be murders we haven't yet discovered. I mean, these are all just conspiracy theories here. But at the end of the day, I think it was a way to control the narrative, because in the end of the day, he is trying to control how he is seen. I know that is important for him. So he's trying to control the narrative and control how he's being seen. So he won't let anything weaken that image. That's why, as I said, the only thing that could get to them is when they attacked his ego, when they attacked his pride. And you saw it resonate briefly, but he didn't feed into it. So let's get to number 3. Right. We got his background in psychology. So Kohberger was described by peers as intelligent but socially isolated, with a longstanding interest in crime and policing. Now, remember, we have to ask ourselves, why was he interested in this? Was he interested in this because he wanted to be a police officer at one point or work in the criminal justice system? Or was he interested in it because his whole life he was fascinated by serial killers and he wanted to become one? And at this point, he just wanted to get the perspective from the other side. Former classmates recalled him asking probing questions about criminal behavior, while others noted his struggles with social acceptance. Guys, you could also even say, maybe, I'm going to add something else that may never have been added before that we could explore maybe, but maybe there was stuff about himself that he didn't understand, and he was probably going to try to learn that side of things to get a better understanding of himself. And then eventually, whatever happened, he wind up going to the dark side. So maybe there was a interest in this type of teachings because there was something in him that wanted him to learn it. And then it was a matter of which way he was gonna go with it. Prosecutors are calling on former professors, advisors, and acquaintances to provide context how his academic path may have intersected with deeper compulsions. And his story raises the unsettling possibility that intellectual study of crime doesn't just inform, it can sometimes fuel darker urges. And that's kind of what I'm saying. If he had the momentum going in one direction and it wasn't there yet, maybe when he took these classes, he maybe, like Russ, you may have hit something too. Actually, if I could combine the thought, maybe he wanted to be these individuals because he did study them. I believe maybe he studied them first, who knows? And then maybe it was about the ability to carry things out and get caught. And maybe when he started kind of studying the criminal justice system, maybe he found a lot of flaws, or maybe he saw himself better than the system. And that maybe could have been the fuel for him to give this a try, give this a shot, thinking that he can outsmart them. And it said, should educators and institutions step in when they see concerning behaviors in students drawn to a dark subject matter, or is that crossing a dangerous line into profiling?
So what I'll say about that is, you know, you really have to have something coupled with that is actually a form of misbehavior, or you're just going to have, you know, a bunch of people shouting wolf all the time. I think, though, what it comes down to specifically in Kohberger's case is just that he didn't have any game. He probably couldn't talk to women. He probably couldn't talk to anybody. But when you get a power imbalance where you have a knife in your hand and you're willing to use it, the power balance changes. And then at that point, he actually does have game in a limited circumstance where he's willing to kill someone, you know, so that he can have that power for that moment in time. I think the rest of the time, you know, he was just socially awkward. You know, I think that, you know, he really probably tried to excel in his classes to try and get, you know, to try and get some attention from that. But I think that was, you know, a little bit artificial on his part, because once again, I'll say the thing that I think that we're going to see coming up is he just had no game. He just could not actually interface with people, and I would bet that especially he could not interface with women. Notice the weapon he chose. So
yeah, knives are extremely personal, and I think that was maybe something I think he was also aware of. I think that's why he kept things quick, and also I think that's why he may have decided ultimately that this was his one advantage. I think this is the one area where I can control. But I really do find it very interesting that his choice of study. I really do. I'm wondering if the choice of study was because he was really interested in maybe at one point crossing into this profession, and maybe he got darkened by the lessons, or which may be more realistic, is that he already was a dark individual, and all the lessons did was cultivate who he wanted to be. You know, I think that's probably the latter is probably correct. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, there's certainly, facets of all of that, and I truly think that probably at the core of it was just that one thing. He couldn't be the man until he had the knife in his hand.
Yeah, it makes us wonder if the colleges may want to do any kind of changing to what the criteria is for that, because I do believe, I mean, when you're introducing people to the dark side of humanity, you got to be very careful on how they receive that dark side of humanity, because some may get too caught into it and then they can't get out. And guys, that does truly happen. If you don't put enough barriers in place, you could get swept in or even fascinated to the point where you just want to feel what it's like to be that individual, to commit to that action. For some people, they think it's the ultimate thrill. So to finally commit to that action may be what they want as that zenith, that highest level of achievement. The last thing I got is the bigger picture and lessons. So Kohberger case forces us to confront a larger issue. Can someone's knowledge of criminal procedure be turned into a weapon? While many study criminology to help solve or prevent crimes, in Kohberger's case, it appears to have given him insight into how investigations work, kind of what you touched on, Russ, and then possibly how to evade them. His story reminds us that evil can come dressed in the most unexpected forms, not just the chaotic stranger, but also the calculated scholar. So what do you think is more dangerous to society, a calculated killer who plans and studies crime, or someone who lashes out unpredictably in the heat of the moment?
So I would say that, overall, what we saw from him is he was really, only, lethal in that moment. He wasn't a very potent individual. He got away with one episodic killing, and that was it. I think that other people that are much different, because his was cold in that fashion. No one has seen him, react really in other ways other than that kind of, flat affect. I think that, is he actually capable of showing rage? I mean, in that, outside of, killing someone, we know that he, did multiple stabbings on all of the victims. So I think that, other people that, just, flash in a rage, at least you can really measure that. You can see, oh, he had an episode here, he had an episode here, he had an episode here. With him, until they caught him, they didn't know who had created that particular episode, who had done this particular crime. So I think that aspect of it is chilling to the point, like probably very few people suspected him. Although now looking back, supposedly, he may have, sexually harassed and said some inappropriate things. But still, there's really not anything that shows him, flashing or raging or becoming, blackout rage. Nothing like that, where a person has been able to identify him later. Obviously, something like that did happen at that moment in that apartment complex.
Yeah, and I think for him, the thrill of taking people's lives also partnered with the thrill of not getting caught, because again, I think he truly tried to get to know the system so he can now fully carry out what he was planning on doing. And I think that picture that he did was kind of, I think it was a signature, but it's also kind of like, to everyone, this is my narrative. I control everything. I'm better than the system. And then unfortunately, I'm sorry, not unfortunately. Oh my God! But fortunately, he got caught, which is the good thing. So with that said, I do think that when you have someone that studies the system, like he did, do I think he could have gotten better? I mean, could have been. Thank God he was so sloppy this time around that he got caught. I think impulsive individuals are extremely sloppy. Eventually, they're going to get caught. But again, there's no controlling what they're doing. So in the short term, they are extremely dangerous. But in the long term, the ones that are more strategic, the ones that learn through every crime that they commit to get better and better and better, because they learn from the flaws of the crime before and also how it's handled. And then God forbid, if he remained in school and they started talking about this crime, and then he's going to know more about, what's being done behind the scenes and then how to move forward to the next step. I mean, he also could have purposely involved himself in it and threw people totally off. If they're going this route, he could have probably been smart enough to convince them to go another route, so I think, strategy in the long run, to me is the bigger threat. Hey, Russ, anything you'd like to say in closing?
Just, people, I think that there's, a lot to these things. We're kind of like taking some educated stabs in the dark. But I just think that, having known a large number of, individuals like this, I think, maybe gives us a little bit of insight, but that can only be carried so far. But I hope everybody enjoyed this, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yes, guys. And guys, again, this is just a quick little dialogue. There really wasn't many updates to work on today. So we just looked at what was out there and what was being discussed. So hopefully you guys enjoy the content. Please check out the other videos that we have. We've been covering a lot on Kohberger and recently the active shooter, but a lot also on the Emmanuel Harrow case. So feel free to check out the whole library of content there. And as always, guys, stay safe.